Your excuses have been telling you stories for years. Stories about why you can't succeed, why you can't start that business, why you can't lose that weight, why you can't improve your relationships. And here's the shocking truth I want to share with you today. Every single one of those stories is a lie. I've spent decades talking to thousands of people just like you. Folks with dreams, with ambition, with potential, all being held back by the same invisible chains. What chains? The excuses they tell themselves every single day. Look around at your life right now. Everything you have and everything you don't have comes from the choices you've made and the excuses you've accepted. That might sound harsh, but it's one of the most liberating truths you'll ever hear. You see, excuses are comfortable. They protect our ego. They let us off the hook. It's not my fault, we say. The timing isn't right. I don't have enough money. I don't have the right connections. I'm too old. I'm too young. These little white lies we tell ourselves seem innocent enough in the moment. But add them up over a lifetime, and they become the prison bars that keep you from the life you deserve. What's interesting about excuses is that they always sound reasonable. That's their power. That's how they fool you. They disguise themselves as wisdom or prudence. They mask themselves as realistic thinking. But their core, they're just fear wearing a clever disguise. The most successful people I've ever met aren't necessarily the smartest or the most talented. But they share one critical trait. They refuse to entertain excuses. When obstacles appear, they find a way over, around, or through them. They don't waste energy explaining why they can't do something. They pour that energy into figuring out how they can't. I want that for you. I want you to experience the freedom that comes when you stop lying to yourself through excuses and start living in the truth of what's possible. Let me tell you what excuses really cost you. They don't just cost you opportunities, though they certainly do that. They cost you something far more precious. They cost you yourself, the real you, the you that's capable of remarkable achievement, the you that can create extraordinary value, the you that can experience deep fulfillment. Every time you make an excuse, you're trading your potential for temporary comfort. You're saying, I'd rather feel better right now than grow into the person I'm capable of becoming. And over time, that trade becomes a habit, a reflex so automatic you don't even notice it happening. I've met 80-year-olds with fire in their eyes and possibility in their hearts. And I've met 30-year-olds who've already decided life has nothing more to offer them. The difference wasn't circumstances. It was excuses. The 80-year-olds refused to make excuses, refused to settle, refused to believe the lies. The 30-year-olds had surrendered to them. The cost of your excuses isn't just measurable in dollars, though we could certainly count those too. How much money have your excuses cost you over the years? How many promotions did you miss because you had an excuse for not putting in extra effort? How many business opportunities slipped by because you had an excuse for not taking a risk? How many investments never happened because you had an excuse for not saving? Add it all up, and excuses might be the most expensive luxury you've ever indulged in. But the real cost goes deeper. Excuses rob you of self-respect. They steal your confidence. They erode your character. Because deep down, you know when you're selling yourself short. You know when you're choosing the easy way out. And each time you do, a little piece of your self-image crumbles. Let's get specific and look at some of the most common excuses I hear and why they simply don't hold water. I don't have enough time. This might be the champion of all excuses. We all get the same 24 hours each day, the same 168 hours each week. Your success isn't determined by how much time you have, but by how you invest that time. When someone tells me they don't have time, what I really hear is, this isn't a priority for me. And that's fine. We all have to choose our priorities. But let's call it what it is. It's not about lack of time. It's about your choices. I remember talking with a young man who insisted he didn't have time to read books that could help his career. Yet he could tell me the plot of every popular TV show. It's not that he didn't have time to read. It's that he chose to prioritize entertainment over education. Again, that's his choice to make. But the excuse about not having time was just a comfortable lie. I don't have enough money. This excuse keeps so many people from starting businesses, investing, or improving their skills. But some of the most successful enterprises began with next to nothing. Creativity can overcome capital constraints. Determination can find resources where others see none. The question isn't, do I have enough money? But rather, how can I achieve this with the resources I currently have? Throughout history, immigrants have arrived in new countries with empty pockets and built remarkable lives. They didn't have money, but they refused to make that an excuse. They found ways to create value with whatever they had, often just their two hands and the willingness to work harder than everyone else. But I don't have the right education. Education is valuable, but it's no substitute for action and real-world experience. Some of the most successful people in the world never finished college. They educated themselves through books, mentors, and the priceless curriculum of trial and error. Formal education gives you tools, but it doesn't guarantee you'll build anything with them. If you feel your education is lacking, the solution isn't to use that as an excuse. It's to educate yourself. We live in an age where the world's knowledge is available at your fingertips. There are free or low-cost courses on every subject imaginable. There are books written by the greatest minds in history. There are podcasts and videos that can teach you practically anything. The only thing stopping you from getting the education you need is your willingness to pursue it. I don't know the right people. Connections can certainly help, but they're not required for success, and they can be built from scratch. Every relationship starts somewhere. Every network begins with a single connection. The most connected people got that way by consistently adding value to others, not by starting out with an impressive contact list. Instead of using lack of connections as an excuse, focus on becoming the kind of person others want to connect with. Develop your skills. Share your knowledge. Help others without expecting anything in return. Genuine relationship building might take time, but it's a skill anyone can develop. It's too late for me. Too late? Was it too late for Grandma Moses, who began her painting career at 78? Was it too late for Ray Kroc, who was over 50 when he built McDonald's into a global empire? The idea that success has an expiration date is one of the most damaging excuses of all. Your past doesn't determine your future unless you use it as an excuse to avoid changing. The truth is, it's never too late to improve, to grow, to begin again. Every day is a new opportunity to start building the life you want. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. I'm not talented enough. This excuse misunderstands what creates success. Talent is overrated. Effort, persistence, and strategic action matter far more in the long run. The person who shows up consistently and puts in the work will outperform the talented person who relies on natural gifts every time. Remember, skills can be learned, knowledge can be acquired, but excuses, those are a choice, and they're a choice that talented people make just as often as anyone else. The economy is bad. Yes, external circumstances affect opportunities, but in every economy, good or bad, some people thrive while others struggle. The difference often comes down to who adapts, who finds the opportunities that always exist, and who refuses to use conditions as an excuse. During the Great Depression, some of America's greatest fortunes were made. During the 2008 financial crisis, new billion-dollar companies were born. External conditions matter, but they're never the whole story. They're never a valid reason to put your dreams on hold indefinitely. I'm afraid of failing. Now we're getting to the heart of most excuses, Fear. But here's what I've learned. Failure isn't your enemy. Excuses are. Failure teaches you. Failure strengthens you. Failure points the way forward by showing you what doesn't work. But excuses, they just keep you stuck. The most successful people have usually failed more times than the average person has even tried. They just refuse to make those failures into excuses for giving up. Do you see the pattern? Every excuse contains a kernel of truth. That's what makes them so seductive. But they all leave out the most important truth, that you have more power than you're giving yourself credit for, that you can find a way if you're committed enough, that your choices matter more than your circumstances. So how do we break free from excuses? It starts with taking complete responsibility for your life. Complete responsibility. Not 90, not 99. 100%. This is perhaps the most difficult thing I'm asking you to do today. Taking complete responsibility means giving up the comfort of blaming circumstances, other people, or bad luck for your situation. It means acknowledging that while you can't control everything that happens to you, you always control how you respond. When you take complete responsibility, something remarkable happens. You reclaim your power. You move from passenger to driver in your own life. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what can I do about it? I've seen this transformation countless times. People who were stuck for years suddenly start making progress once they embrace responsibility. The same obstacles that seemed insurmountable become challenges to overcome. The same limitations that seemed permanent become temporary conditions to work around. Taking responsibility doesn't mean blaming yourself for every problem. It means recognizing your role in creating your current reality, and more importantly, your power to create a different reality moving forward. This kind of responsibility requires courage. It's not easy to look in the mirror and say, I created this situation through my choices, and I can create something different through better choices. It's much easier to point fingers, make excuses, and stay comfortable in familiar limitations. But comfort has never been the path to greatness. Comfort doesn't build character. Comfort doesn't create value. Comfort doesn't change the world. Or the path of responsibility is challenging, but it's also incredibly liberating. When you stop making excuses, you start making progress. When you stop blaming circumstances, you start creating new ones. When you stop focusing on what you can't control, you pour your energy into what you can. This brings us to another powerful antidote to excuses: decision making. The word decision comes from Latin roots that literally mean to cut off. When you make a true decision, you cut off all other possibilities. You burn the bridges to retreat. You commit completely to your chosen path. Most people don't make decisions this way. They make wishes. They make preferences. They make tentative choices they can easily back out of when things get difficult. And that's why they're so vulnerable to excuses. Without the anchor of a firm decision, they're easily blown off course by the winds of circumstance. I want you to think about the major achievements in your life. I bet they all began with a decision. Not a half-hearted, I'll try or I'll see how it goes, but a wholehearted, this will happen no matter what. When you decide with that kind of certainty, excuses lose their power over you. Obstacles become merely problems to solve on the way to your goal, not reasons to abandon it. Failures become lessons, not stop signs. The quality of your life ultimately comes down to the quality of your decisions. Not just the big, obvious ones, like what career to pursue or who to marry, but the thousands of small decisions you make every day. Do I wake up early or hit snooze? Did I keep my word or break it? Do I do what's right or what's easy? Do I make an excuse or find a solution? These decisions might seem insignificant in isolation, but together they create the structure of your life. They form your character. They determine your destiny. So many people wait for motivation before they take action, but that's backward. Action creates motivation. Decision creates motivation. When you fully commit to something, you tap into reservoirs of energy and determination you didn't know you had. I've worked with people who complained for years about not having enough motivation to change their lives. But when they finally made a real decision, when they cut off all other possibilities and burned the mental bridges of retreat, suddenly motivation wasn't an issue anymore. They found the strength to do whatever was necessary. That's the power of decision over excuse. When you truly decide, excuses become unacceptable. They become incompatible with your self-image. They become foreign to your way of thinking. Now, making decisions is powerful, but keeping them requires discipline. And discipline is another essential tool for eliminating excuses from your life. Discipline isn't some mystical quality that some people are born with and others aren't. Discipline is simply choosing between what you want now and what you want most. It's the ability to do what needs to be done even when you don't feel like doing it. When you develop discipline, you no longer need to rely on motivation or inspiration to take action. You take action because that's who you are. That's what you've decided to become, a disciplined person. Building discipline. Start small. You don't need to revolutionize your entire life overnight. Start with one area, perhaps your morning routine or your work habits. Create clear structures and stick to them, especially when you don't feel like it. Those moments of resistance are actually the most valuable for building discipline. Every time you choose discipline over excuse, you strengthen that muscle. You build your character. You increase your capacity to achieve. And most importantly, you prove to yourself that you're not a slave to your feelings or circumstances. You demonstrate that you're in charge of your actions. The beautiful thing about discipline is that it compounds over time. Small, consistent actions add up to massive changes. The person who reads just 10 pages a day will read over 600 pages in a year. That's about 12 substantial books. The person who saves just $5 a day will save over $1,800 in a year. The person who exercises just 15 minutes a day will exercise for over 90 hours in a year. These numbers might not sound impressive in isolation, but they represent the power of consistent discipline over time. And they illustrate an important truth. Success doesn't usually come from grand, heroic actions. It comes from simple disciplines, practiced every day. Excuses thrive in the gap between knowing and doing. You know you should save money, but you have an excuse for why you can't start today. You know you should improve your skills, but you have an excuse for why you can't find the time. You know you should build better relationships, but you have an excuse for why that's difficult in your situation. Discipline closes that gap. It turns knowing into doing. It transforms good intentions into concrete results. And it leaves no room for excuses. Another powerful strategy for eliminating excuses is to create an environment that doesn't tolerate them. Your environment, both physical and social, has an enormous influence on your thinking and behavior. If you surround yourself with people who make excuses, you'll naturally make more excuses yourself. If you consume media that promotes victim thinking, you'll find yourself adopting that perspective. If your physical space is disorganized and chaotic, your thinking will tend to follow suit. The solution? Deliberately engineer your environment to support your highest aspirations rather than your weakest tendencies. Surround yourself with people who take responsibility, who find solutions, instead of making excuses, who hold themselves to high standards. Their attitudes and approaches will rub off on you. Their examples will inspire you. Their standards will challenge you. Similarly, be intentional about the information you consume. Feed your mind with stories of overcoming obstacles, not being defeated by them. Study people who succeeded despite difficulties, not those who surrendered to them. Fill your mental space with possibilities, not limitations. Even your physical environment matters. Ordered organization in your external world promote clarity and purpose in your internal world. When your space is functioning well, you remove a whole category of potential excuses. I once visited the office of an extremely successful business owner. What struck me wasn't the size or luxury of the space, but its thoughtful organization. Everything had a purpose. Everything was arranged to maximize productivity and minimize friction. When I commented on this, he said something I never forgot. I can't afford the luxury of chaos. Chaos breeds excuses. Think about that. Chaos breeds excuses. Disorder creates friction. Friction leads to postponement. Postponement becomes permanent. This is how environments of disorder subtly undermine our best intentions. Your environment should make the right choices easier and the wrong choices harder. It should reduce friction for positive actions and increase friction for negative ones. When your environment is working for you rather than against you, excuses lose much of their power. Of course, changing your environment isn't always easy. You might not be able to completely choose your social circle or work environment, but you can always make improvements, even small ones, and those improvements add up. Now, let's talk about something that might be uncomfortable, but is absolutely essential. Honest self-assessment. Excuses cannot survive in the light of rigorous honesty. Most of us have blind spots when it comes to our own behavior. We see our intentions, which are usually good, rather than our actions, which might not align with those intentions. We remember our efforts, but forget our shortcuts. We notice our limitations, but overlook our advantages. These distortions create fertile ground for excuses. They allow us to maintain a positive self-image while avoiding the discomfort of growth and change. The antidote is ruthless honesty with yourself. Not beating yourself up or engaging in negative self-talk, but simply seeing things as they really are. Did you really try your best, or did you do just enough to say you tried? Did you really not have time, or did you not make time? Did you really need more information before starting, or were you procrastinating out of fear? These questions aren't meant to make you feel bad. They're meant to cut through the fog of self-deception that excuses require to survive. They're meant to put you back in touch with reality. And reality is the only place where meaningful change can happen. One practice I highly recommend is writing down your excuses. There's something powerful about seeing them in black and white. When excuses exist only in your mind, they maintain their persuasive power. But when you write them down and read them back, you often see how flimsy they really are. Try this. The next time you find yourself making an excuse, write it down. Then ask, is this really true? Is this absolutely preventing me from moving forward? What would someone I admire do in this situation? These questions can quickly dispel the illusion of necessity that surrounds most excuses. Remember, excuses are stories we tell ourselves to avoid discomfort. But growth happens only through discomfort. Comfort is the enemy of achievement. When you choose comfort over growth, you're choosing excuses over results. Here's another powerful shift. In thinking, started seeing excuses as opportunities. What if each excuse pointed to an area where you could become stronger, more resourceful, more resilient? This perspective transforms excuses from obstacles into signposts. They no longer block your path. They illuminate it. They show you exactly where you need to grow. For example, if you often make the excuse, I don't have enough time, that's revealing something important. Perhaps you need to develop better time management skills. Perhaps you need to get clearer on your priorities. Perhaps you need to practice saying no to low-value activities. If your common excuse is, I don't have the right connections, that's showing you a specific area for growth. You need to develop your networking skills. You need to practice adding value to others without expectation of return. You need to become more comfortable in social situations. Every excuse contains within it the seed of an opportunity. The very thing you're using as a reason not to move forward is actually pointing to exactly how you could move forward. If you're willing to grow, this perspective also takes excuses out of the realm of morality. It's not about being good or bad, disciplined or lazy. It's simply about identifying opportunities for growth. This makes it easier to be honest with yourself because you're not judging yourself for having excuses. You're mining them for insights. When you start seeing excuses this way, you might even become grateful for them. They're like personal growth consultants, constantly pointing out areas where you could become more effective. The only difference is they're free. Now let's get practical. How do you actually eliminate excuses from your life? Here are some specific strategies that have worked for thousands of people I've coached over the years. First, become aware of your excuses. You can't change what you don't notice. Start paying attention to the stories you tell yourself about why you can't do something or why something isn't working out. Listen for phrases like, I can't, because, or it would be different if these often. Second, challenge your excuses. When you catch yourself making an excuse, ask, is this really true? Is this absolutely preventing me from moving forward? Could someone else in my situation find a way despite this limitation? These questions help separate genuine obstacles from manufactured ones. Third, replace excuses with questions. Instead of saying, I can't afford it, ask, how can I afford it? Instead of saying, I don't have time, ask, how can I make time for what's truly important? Questions open up possibilities. Excuses close them down. Fourth, make public commitments. When you tell others about your goals and intentions, you create external accountability. It becomes much harder to make excuses when other people are watching your progress and expecting results. Fifth, break down big goals into small actions. Excuses thrive when tasks seem overwhelming. By breaking goals down into tiny, manageable steps, you remove the intimidation factor. It's hard to make excuses for not taking one small step. Sixth, create systems instead of relying on willpower. Willpower is finite and fluctuates from day to day. Systems, regular routines, and habits keep you moving forward regardless of how you feel. Good systems make excuses irrelevant. Seventh, celebrate progress, not just outcomes. When you acknowledge and celebrate small wins along the way, you build momentum and confidence. This makes it easier to keep going when obstacles arise, rather than using them as excuses to quit. Eighth, practice immediate action. When you feel resistance rising and excuses forming, that's exactly when you should take immediate action. Don't wait until you feel ready or until conditions are perfect. Act now while the resistance is still weak. Ninth, forgive yourself for past excuses. Carrying guilt or shame about past failures only makes it harder to change. Forgive yourself, learn the lesson, and focus on today's choices rather than yesterday's mistakes. 10th, surround yourself with action takers. As I mentioned earlier, your social environment powerfully influences your behavior. Spend time with people who make things happen despite obstacles, and you'll naturally adopt their solution-focused mindset. These strategies work. I've seen them transform lives time and again, but they only work if you use them consistently. Reading about them isn't enough. Understanding them isn't enough. You must apply them day after day until they become your natural way of operating. And that brings me to perhaps the most important point of all, the extraordinary life that's waiting for you beyond excuses. When you stop making excuses, you start discovering what you're truly capable of. And I promise you, it's far more than you currently believe. Most people are living at a tiny fraction of their potential. They've built invisible cages of excuses around themselves, cages so familiar they no longer even see the bars. Breaking free from those cages reveals possibilities that were always there but never accessible. I've seen people double and triple their income after eliminating excuse-based thinking. I've seen relationships transform when people stop making excuses for poor communication or lack of effort. I've seen health revolutionized when excuses for unhealthy habits were finally confronted and discarded. The quality of your life expands in direct proportion to the number of excuses you eliminate. It's that simple and that profound. Beyond excuses lies a life of agency and impact. When you stop making excuses, you start making a difference. First in your own life, then in the lives of others. You become a creator rather than a complainer, a solver rather than a victim, a leader rather than a follower. This transformation isn't just about achieving more or having more. It's about becoming more. It's about growing into the person you're capable of being, the person who's currently hidden behind walls of I can't, and it's not possible for me. That person, your highest potential self, is waiting for you on the other side of your excuses. That person has gifts to share, contributions to make, joys to experience. That person can create extraordinary value in the world and experience profound fulfillment in the process. The world needs what you have to offer. It needs your gifts, your perspective, your unique contribution. But it will never receive those gifts as long as they remain locked behind walls of excuses. So I challenge you today. Take one area of your life where you've been making excuses. Just one. Identify the specific excuses you've been telling yourself. Challenge their truth. Replace them with questions that open up possibilities. And then take one small action. Today, not tomorrow. That proves those excuses wrong. That single step, that modest beginning, contains within it the power to change everything. Because once you prove to yourself that excuses are lies, you can never fully believe them again. And once you taste the freedom and power that comes from acting despite obstacles, you'll hunger for more of that experience. This is how transformation happens. Not all at once, but step by step. Not through grandiose declarations, but through small, consistent choices. Not by becoming someone else, but by becoming more fully yourself, The self that excuses have been hiding, your excuses have been lying to you. But today, right now, you can start telling yourself a different story, a true story, a story of capability, of possibility, of the extraordinary life that becomes available when you refuse to settle for anything less. That story begins with a choice, your choice. What will it be? Remember, life will pay any price you ask of it. Most people just don't ask for enough. They settle for less than they're capable of because they've accepted excuses as truth. Don't let that be your story. Ask for more from yourself and from life. Refuse to be satisfied with explanations when you could be creating results instead. The difference between where you are and where you want to be is filled with excuses. Clear them out of the way, and nothing can stop you from creating the life you truly desire and deserve. So what's it going to be? More excuses or more life? The choice, as always, is yours.